worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Most of those are pretty good venues to leave comments. Twitter, you got to do the whole reply thing. We've gotten an off message or two there, people DMing me over there. Interesting feedback that we get, but the point is, with all of that, to be out there in all the ways that are the best accessible ones. We've had some comments and some suggestions about specific networks to be on. These are the ones we're going to stick now for the moment, because we find them to be the best accessible, the best policies for now, and the best way to have that conversation, get it all out there, and really talk about the things that affect us here in the Borderland. Hope you all had a very restful weekend, well, as restful as it can be, with that whole hour of sleep being lost. Reminds me of the Princess Bride line. I've just taken away 1 hour of your life. How does that make you feel? And I hope you all stayed safe on the roads out there today. Some studies invariably come out this time of year saying that the loss of sleep that people invariably experience, because sure, it happens on Sunday, but you're not used to that by Monday morning, is equivalent to people being very slightly tipsy on the road during the average commute here. So if you're out and about right now, hope that you had your 40 winks that you needed today, and that you're feeling restful and safe on the roads, because Lord knows we don't need any more kerfuffle than we're already seeing going on with there. So hope it's working out for you. As we have over on the social media here already, Robert Haynes dropping a like over there. More than welcome to throughout the show. If you got your comments as well, you're welcome, because doing that is one of the better ways throughout the shows. We got a lot that we're going to get into here today. More, shall we say, forsaging of what's probably coming on the campaign trail going on today, as it's not something I usually pay attention to, South by Southwest, except for that one time I ended up in Austin mistakenly during the festival. Yeah, that was it's like walking into a convention you didn't realize was a convention because it's the whole damn city, but that was years ago, and I'm sure it's only gotten worse since then. But more specifically, some statements coming out of there, some of the hearings is the totally right word, events that are going on there, specifically from Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, talking about his perspective on his now pretty clear opponent for that November election. We'll delve into that as well, plus more information about some more direct impacts to the Borderland here, more of that economic development that I am still cautiously optimistic about. It's not something to be certain for sure, but some of the movements that are happening here lead me to be encouraged, or at the very least want to pay further attention to it. I think it's about as far as I'm willing to reach at the moment here when we're looking at further investment, or reinvestment in this case, as reported by El Paso Inc., of companies looking to put more into the region, plus new people at the helm of some of the local concerns, I guess would be the best way to put it, that might be affecting this, including a new economic and international director for the city of El Paso. So some of the things we're looking at here today, of course, will be wanting y'all's input as well as we get through the program here, because talking about what's important to you is, well, one of the better things I think we can ever really get to, even as there are more bits of involvement. There's, among other things, just on that subject, there are going to be meetings coming up involving the county, actually, about the American Recovery Act, the ARPA. Is that the right way to say the acronym? No one's ever actually said it out loud to me. But those kind of funds that have been coming out of the first part of the now stalled two-part whole Build Back Better adjustment, the infrastructure part of it is what I'm talking about here. Some more listening sessions coming from the county, that's coming up before too long, but also even then the city adding more hearings about proposed amendments to noise, sound application, and permit ordinances here. that we've talked about a little bit. That coming up later this week, actually, and a whole list of them here. We'll break all that down and the impacts that might have on this. It's almost like a fervor out there. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know your impressions out there. If you've been going out to restaurants, businesses, the kind of stuff that saw, at the very least, some languishing of demand in the height of the pandemic, or even this recent spike that was seen, at very least, statewide and more or less across the nation here. It seems like the consumer demand is back in full force within the Borderland region. Everywhere I go, parking lots are jammed. Staff are a little harried, even if they are at good staffing levels. I'm not sure that there's any place that is really like, yes, we have absolutely everyone we need. There is no way we could even use another person. I don't think any business that I'm aware of is feeling that right now, because that's still an ongoing issue, absolutely. But just people seem to want to go out and do things, to participate in things, to experience things that they probably have curtailed for the most part. I am sure there are some out there mildly screaming at their radios right now saying, I never stopped doing things, and more power to you. But you got to admit, in the aggregate, on the whole, when you look at consumer confidence, at the very least within our local area, much less nationwide, had been curtailed for a large part. Just people weren't willing to go out. The phrase that still lives rent-free in my head from Roadhouse, people don't want to go out to a bloodbath. Not exactly the same order of magnitude as that, but the same kind of sentiment does apply. If people weren't confident, if they weren't feeling safe, secure, etc., to go out and do things, they weren't going to do it. That's why I said, as much as we love talking about NFTs and the modern media and the news here today, you can't just declare consumer confidence back. Each individual consumer is making their own individual choices on it. So the way it's talked about, absolutely important. I will agree with you there. But just the situations we're looking at here locally, I am mildly encouraged. Whether that will stay up and stay at the same levels, that's a reasonable question to ask. Because, the way I had a friend put it was, now that we're in between Greek letters, let's go out and do something. Gladly took them up on it, because getting out to hang out with people is an important thing. I can only do so many virtual happy hours and meetups and greet-ups, and before it starts just being I'm glad I'm done with the bad screen for work for the day. Now I get to turn on the good screen for not work for the rest of the day here. It's the weirdness of modern life here. And I'm happy that we can still be doing things in person, just the staying power of it. And what we're looking at as a region, that's the kind of major overarching narrative that I'm looking at, and what that might mean, because John Brownson not happy with one of our subjects here about there being a new city economic director, more high-priced city bureaucrats. What are the two chambers of commerces for? Okay, I can take that down for a little bit here, but I guess it's the difference between the private sector banding together to represent their own interests, and then what, ideally anyway, should be then the public representative to liaise with that. We've already heard some of the candidates that we've had on even since the election mentioning that as strong impetuses they have if elected to office, as really focusing on that. So, okay, if you take a dim view on it, let's get into it. Let's talk about that position and what it means. But we are already due for that first break of this hour right now. So coming out of this break, we'll get into it. Let's talk about the economic development. Let's talk both about the companies looking at doing more investment here in town, even if some things are stalling a little bit, but could foresage even more demand coming on, and that position that has now been filled, had been previously filled, went vacant for a bit as there was change around, interim nature, that kind of a thing. But we'll get on to that. Again, you're tuned in here to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Comments over on the social media. Open up the phone calls a little bit later in the program, as we do. But otherwise, I want to know what you think about these issues. So, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso and more. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. If you're wanting to get out and do more, but maybe not quite on the travel circuit yet, something that you can do regardless of whether you're leaving town or not is by taking your taste buds around the world Enhanced Flavors is your local source of quality flavored olive oils and balsamic vinegars. Over 40 varieties they have. One of the ones I've been using lately is their Tunisian Parmesan garlic rosemary flavored extra virgin olive oil. It gives you a kick and really then takes it up a notch when you're doing your cooking here. Their olive oils, both the extra virgin and the flavored varieties, imported from Tunisia, Italy, Greece, and Spain, and all of their balsamic vinegars, of course, imported from the Modena province of Italy. You really got to try this stuff, particularly if you're looking to spice up your life, because they can really just take it to the next level and bring some flavors that you've probably been missing if you haven't been getting out that much. You can find them, of course, online at enhancedflavors.com. That's enhancedflavors.com, or out at some of your favorite events. Happened to stop by the Upper Valley Farmers Market yesterday. Packed out there. That demand, people wanting to get out and do things, is very real, and this is another way you can take advantage of it yourself here. So again, find them online or at the farmers markets, but the website for all the information, enhancedflavors.com. That's enhancedflavors.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an injury accident Gateway Boulevard northbound at Hercules Avenue. Global Reach northbound at Montana is the site of another injury accident. Take Lee Trevino or the Loop to get around it. Police on the scene of an injury accident, Snowhawks Drive at Terrence Lane. That's just south of Saul Kleinfeld. And the overnight road closure of the transbound that was supposed to begin tonight and pushed back again until later in the week. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the maker of Frontline Shield. Frontline Shield for dogs is from the #1 name in flea and tick protection. So no matter what type of dog you have or what adventure you go on, Frontline Shield lets you take them everywhere, no matter how you define it. Visit frontline.com to learn more.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness, modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru and host of The Travel Show, and I want to give you a free cruise, courtesy of Morris Columbus Travel, Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, and News Radio KTSM AM 690. There's nothing to buy, but you must enter the drawing online no later than March 15th at TravelShowPrize.com. That's TravelShowPrize.com. And join me on The Travel Show every Sunday at 7 p.m.
So the dream was to build your very own law practice, be your own boss, call all the shots. But have things like billing, HR, timekeeping, and all the other management stuff turned your dream into a nightmare? Take charge of your practice with Lexicon. We're the intersection of practice management software and legal support services for your firm. You'll get more billable and livable hours back. Lexicon marks the spot for all your practice management needs. Visit lexiconservices.com/intersection to get the whole story or schedule a demo.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Open up those phone lines a little bit later, as we do towards the end of this hour, as we're setting out some of the major topics on my mind here today, but we're certainly open to input because there's a lot going on here. But as we do during this portion of the week, getting towards the end, well, before we get towards the end, I guess I should say, we focus on the things and the issues affecting us here in the Borderland. So a couple of the major ones on my mind here today. Economic development, kind of always a concern, because if we're not growing, well, there's that adage, you're not growing, you're dying kind of thing. Not sure that totally applies to a city. Probably does in more ways than not. But I think we're on the good side of that at the moment, but I'm willing to be proven wrong, of course, because there's a lot of moving parts that happen in keeping a regional economy that we're pretty much based around here going. And so some of the things coming out from our news partners and from some of the folks that we talk with in terms of further investment in this area is interesting. Story out by El Paso Inc., of course, this week, talking about another business looking at expanding its regional footprint. This has been kind of in a series of a few that we've talked about recently. This one specifically going to be Mount Franklin Foods that has kind of fits into that maquila category, at least in my mind, even if not technically, because they've got one of their major factories that's kind of just south of Santa Teresa on the Mexican side of things, doing the, among other things, candies. I believe they do the Black Forest gummy bears, according again to El Paso Inc. here, and make a lot more than I realized was made in our region. I mean, I'm always surprised sometimes by the stuff that's out there. They're going to be specifically expanding their capacity, 400 new jobs, and going up to 280 million pounds of snack and candy making capacity. That's a lot of junk food, and I think people are kind of excited about that in a variety of ways here. But the gummy category specifically grown 15 to 20% year over year, which is fascinating to me. I had no idea that there was that much measuring of gummies. I always thought of kind of them as a novelty, but hey, point is that it's another one of those businesses and industries looking at expanding its footprint within our region. So, I mean, the maquila industry has its whole pros and cons with the way it's set up and the impact that it actually has, but it will ultimately see increased capacity, demand, resources being generated and also needed in our area. So another one to keep an eye on there, even as there is some other, I mean, we talked a little bit about it last week with Robbie Gray, the editor of El Paso Inc., but they got the story out now, of course, on their site that the Caples building downtown, that if you head straight into downtown along Mesa, actually, you would, if you didn't turn, you'd run smack into it. It's a nice building, of course, an old Trost building, but it hasn't sold just yet after still kind of languishing more or less vacant. There are some strong possibilities with it, some interest. I think someone was looking for a bit too deep of a bargain, apparently, because didn't meet the reserve requirement. The minimum $2.2 million bid on it was that highest bid came in $25,000 below that, according to the story right now. So it's probably a strong possibility now that the real price is probably better known by investors and bidders. There might be some maneuvering. There are some baselines being set. Some of the things that were being talked about that, including that what Robbie mentioned to us, was a possibility of doing kind of a mixed use part of it. Of course, it's got the whole kind of like ground level businesses, street level, right off the sidewalk, and then maybe the use of it is kind of like high-tech storage, document storage, secure storage that has to be climate controlled, that kind of thing, a little bit better than your roll-up door kind of rental units, storage unit kind of thing. So, I mean, I've been encouraged for years when it comes to downtown specifically, that not necessarily so much because of policies that have been put into place, but rather that El Paso's downtown historic building stock was more or less intact. There was some words exchanged about some of the people or groups, organizations that owned some of these properties, including the Caples building in the past, that I'm not going to repeat on air, but I certainly understand the sentiment of when it comes to the Abrahams that owned this one specifically, among other things. But that there was, I feel like we turned the corner some years ago. That probably got a little bit of a kibosh put onto it by the pandemic, but seems to be coming back then when it comes to actually wanting to redevelop and not just flatten and turn them into those so wonderful surface level parking lots. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but I tend to be bullish on El Paso at the very least until proven otherwise here. But the question and the kind of point that, at least one commentator here, John Browsenden, was not too happy about there was the announcement of the naming of a new economic and international let's just get the full name here. Director of the Economic and International Development Department is also being reported over by our news partners at the El Paso Herald-Post. That going to be after a bit of a interim period is really what it comes down to, that Elizabeth Triggs has been named, had been previously the interim director after Jessica Herrera stepped down from that position to take a position with CBRE in the private sector. According to, quoted here from our news partners in the area, David Coronado, Managing Director of International Bridges and Economic Development and International Affairs and Departments, saying that Elizabeth served as interim director, has shown ability, skill, and knowledge to lead the department. So there is, among other things, being talked about the Schneider Electric development as being a part of that, one of the previous stories that we talked about, and of course talked with the VP there about their decision to continue doing that kind of a development here. So, okay, if you're, not that happy about the idea of bureaucrats in general, as John was talking about, understandable, because sure, there's, the bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy kind of sentiment that comes into place. But I will say this is one of the departments that I would be less than happy if it continued being in an interim basis or unfilled, because kind of setting your public priorities when you don't have that kind of a position filled, saying that this is not a priority for us. So any prospective businesses coming in looking for the person to directly liaise with might get the move along kind of signal from it here. So this is not a new role. This is one that had been, again, filled interim basis and now fully back in place. We'll see what the tenure here then brings in, because, well, if you're not focused, I would take a very dim view of it if the city just either said, no, we're not going to have this department, or we're going to get rid of it, or just let it sit unfilled. Because, again, think about the message that does send to other businesses looking to come in. Those ones that we've also talked about that have been buying some of the local production, trying to add that to portfolio, trying to expand local operations. If you don't even have a good person to talk with within the local resources, the city and county governments or the other regional ones that you're having to deal with there, doesn't exactly look good. So, okay. Yeah, on the balance here, I guess I am finding myself in favor of it as we're talking through this, because if you don't have it, just bad signal to prospective companies, amongst other things. So if you disagree with me, let me know, because I do think that having at least someone to talk to, even if you don't find it useful, is a better signal. And the way that everyone, again, the candidates we've had on, it hasn't been the discussion point with all of the candidates we've had on, even pre and post-election, primary election. We'll have more of those discussions coming up as we get closer to now the runoff election. Don't forget, late May, that is coming up after the constitutional amendment election that will be affecting school funding, I guess, in general, but also your tax rates and the amount that can be exempted under the homestead laws. We'll get into that further. But the amount of talk that people put onto this, elected officials and wannabes, those candidates that are still coming up, this is the kind of thing that you then see the rubber hit the road come with it, because it's these kind of initial conversations of businesses coming into town looking to develop that ends up with then the tax breaks, the incentive packages, et cetera, that then end up making, for the most part, the final decision for a lot of companies here. Because even though we still have a very small town mentality, in a lot of ways, it ends up becoming, how do the financials work out that let them end up relocating here? So, okay, I'm happy that this position is filled. We'll see what they do with it. That's the real question, I think, that comes out of it, and if city council can support it or not. So, speaking about economic development and city council, of course, there is going to be that whole noise ordinance that has, now that people are very excited to go back out and do things, seems to have taken on a little bit of new life. In fact, there are going to be 4 virtual community meetings, again, according to our news partners over at the El Paso Herald-Post, to deal with those proposed amendments to the noise ordinance and the sound amplification permit ordinance. So those are going to be happening actually a little bit later this week. In fact, Thursday, March 17th, and then Monday, March 21st, Wednesday, March 23rd, and Tuesday, March 29th. These are all virtual. So if you're there are ways to call into it here. You can find that again over from our news partners at the El Paso Herald-Post. But there is going to be an in-person meeting if you do want to attend that, but not until next month, April 26th, that Tuesday there at 9 a.m. That'll be part of the city council meeting. So if you're in that kind of vein and wanting to really talk about it, that's the point to do so. But having attended more than my fair share of city council meetings, I haven't done it really since the pandemic. I've watched a few, but haven't been in chambers for the past couple of years at the very least. That can get a little hairy at best. So if you got the ability, I wouldn't discourage you from doing the virtual ones here. RJ over on the YouTube saying that El Paso needs to have a full sales staff, so to speak, selling El Paso strengths and a hardcore attitude to make things happen. Okay, so curious to know what you think about if you think that having these positions in place and filled is going to be enough, or if even more should be done there. We'll leave that question as we head into this next break. Due for that right now. Again, you're tuned into Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk, talking about some of the things going on, economic development, still mildly encouraged until proven otherwise. Coming out of the break, we'll talk further about more of those politics we're getting into, what O'Rourke has been saying during South by Southwest as that November election looms. Back after a minute.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Justin Cruz, your CBS 4 News Update. As Russia continues to invade and bomb Ukraine, more people are starting to show solidarity with the people of Ukraine. The city of El Paso, in support last night at the art installation at I-10 and Airway, lit yellow and blue, the colors of the Ukrainian flag. The tribute will remain in place for the remainder of the month. The cost of gas may be stabilizing. The average cost for a gallon of gas right now rounds up to $4.33. That's the same price as yesterday, and it's about the same as the record high from 3 days ago. Gas is still up 26 cents from a week ago at $4.07. A month ago, gas in the U.S. was an average of $3.49 before Russia invaded Ukraine. El Pasoans will soon have another library to utilize. A grand reopening celebration will be held today for the Sergio Troncaso branch in the Lower Valley. It closed in March of 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. There are 9 libraries currently open to the public in the city of El Paso. The celebration begins at 10 a.m. and is open to the public. With your CBS 4 News Update, I'm Justin Cree.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A crash is slowing traffic, causing a backup Montana Avenue eastbound at Yarborough. It's also closed the left lane and left turn lane. Gateway Boulevard northbound at Hercules, an injury accident there. Another accident reported Macomb Street south of Sanders at Joe Herrera. And medical crews still working an injury accident east of Saul Kleinfeld and south of Edgemere at Snowhawks Drive and Terrence Lane. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the Forewarn Weather Center, this is CBS 4 weather forecaster Brady Brewster. After a pretty pleasant weekend, we'll continue to see those nice temperatures for the next few days, right where we should be for this time of the year with our daytime highs in the low 70s. Breezy to windy conditions do pick back up this afternoon. We can see gusts as high as about 25 to 30 miles per hour. Temperatures keep climbing throughout the week. By midweek, we're looking at daytime highs near that 80-degree mark.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has the innovative tech and tools you need to take on the future of work, all at great prices. Right now, save up to $230 on select PCs. In-store only offer ends 3/19, limit 2. Explore what's new for your business at Staples, the working and learning store.
Hey El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We've extended Ram truck months and deals are even bigger and better with 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles with more arriving daily.
Buy now and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months, 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying your truck is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Excludes factory rebate dealer discount plus DTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Most of those avenues allow you at least to participate in the program if you want to, or just watch it. You're more than welcome to do that, because as long as you're trying to stay aware of what's going on, the issues affecting us here, you're probably a bit ahead of the curve for a lot of people. And if you're voting, so much the better here. So talking about that a bit here, even as we have some other comments here, RJ, John Brazelton, and more tuning in, chiming in over there. Lorenzo Colon, Robert Hayes, and Michael Robert Tipton. Shout out to my guy over there, over on the social media, Facebook primarily. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso is the primary page for the most part. It's where the Thunderdome of comments shows up as the Skeptic Squad chimes in every day. So forewarned, forearmed if you end up in there. Consensus is fleeting, I think is a good way to put it here. There's a lot of other adjectives I could use in a non-live radio setting here, but I'm happy to talk about it and wade into it here. John Brazelton saying, a sleepy city like El Paso has a city manager who makes almost $400K a year, more than most managers of other Texas cities who have much bigger populations. The city attorney makes over $200K and has to hire outside attorneys to conduct city business. I'm aware of the gripes that have come up about some of the highest paid public employees in El Paso, at least when it comes to the city government anyway, for a while now. And yeah, he's a city manager damn sight close to $400K, even as of last year, even as there were questions about, actually as of this year now, looking like it might be actually be over it. A little bit conflicting. I mean, there's like bonuses and other pay schedules involved in it that lead to it being a little bit more complicated than it needs to be to say exactly what are we talking about when it comes to what our public funds are going towards. It's been a increasing question, and some of those things actually coming up. I haven't forgotten about the whole charter review committee, citizen review committee that has been nominated. Not much going on at the moment, I do believe, but some meetings coming up, and hopefully once that actually starts getting going, we'll see some interesting proposals to come out of it, shall we say, because even though we, of course, have the city manager form of government, we still have some vestiges of the strong mayor form of government, such as the vetoes that were, well, a little bit more contentious than usual in the middle of last year. You may recall when we had some of the heated words being exchanged during city council meetings between the mayor and some city council members. So we'll see if that comes up, but there's a whole lot more possibilities there. Among other things, of course, talking about the campaign trail and the things coming out of it, there have been some movement here. Of course, we did see within the county commissioner's seats, specifically a lot of runoffs happening there. We've talked a bit about what's going on, well, on the Republican side of the ballot. Hadn't focused quite as much on ahead of the election on the Democrat side of the ballot. One of the things that's being reported on by El Paso Matters is actually that one of the major contenders here, Dorothy Sissy Bird, has now endorsed Sergio Coronado for the County Commissioner Precinct 4 seat, that the one currently held by Commissioner Robinson. So that one will be going, of course, to its own runoff here in May. So don't forget about that, because it's going to be another interesting election as we get closer to it there. But okay, let's just skip straight to the top of the ballot here, because, of course, we've heard a couple of statements, a couple of initial things. We talked a lot about Governor Greg Abbott and his first major news conference. I mean, he gets out statements constantly, including, among other things, a day of prayer that was being asked for Ukraine, but hadn't heard quite as much out of the O'Rourke campaign, and a lot of very, let's just say, strong statements coming out over the weekend and a little bit before, as part of the development going on with the South by Southwest and all the events coming over here. The Texas Tribune reported, well, let me just read you the headline here. O'Rourke calls Abbott a quote-unquote thug and an quote-unquote authoritarian who's, quote, got his oligarch here in the state of Texas, end quote. I've been seeing that whole oligarchy term being thrown around a lot more ever since it really got prevalent in reference to almost anything in the government of Russia lately. But some analysis going on, of course, about the idea of American oligarchs, and, well, even some who have called into this program, of course, have used that phrase in their own way, but I'm just seeing it crop up a lot more in a lot of ways. So O'Rourke, speaking as a part of South by Southwest at the event that they hold there, having some very choice words for Abbott, and again, calling the current governor a thug and an authoritarian as part of it. And previous to this little speech and thing going on there, O'Rourke had already been starting to hit back a bit on the whole teacher shortage thing, amongst many other issues. I mean, there's a whole slew. More has been cropping up over on the O'Rourke site. If you're interested in checking it, you can find it there for yourself. But focusing on the teacher shortage, particularly that whole juxtaposition we've been seeing between, well, Texas and New Mexico, frankly, the way that they are handling it, including some other statements coming out from the Texas Teachers Union, essentially. Yeah, the Texas American Federation of Teachers statement on Governor Abbott's teacher retention task force also being mentioned by the O'Rourke campaign. Some other statements that, of course, been coming out, more doubling down on the idea of a legalization of marijuana, but some of the ones very specifically coming out now about the O'Rourke campaign, just setting up probably a very contentious campaign as we get closer to November. That one, again, that 200 days and change away. This one not contended, not going to be showing up on that runoff ballot because, of course, O'Rourke and Abbott both handily won their elections. Abbott in the 60%, O'Rourke in the 90%. I don't think that really, I mean, the number there is a little bit shocking, but not exactly surprising to anyone who was watching that race closely and understood that you'd be hard-pressed to get any other Democrat voter in Texas to name a different candidate besides O'Rourke. I mean, there was only that one question about if that other guy was going to run. You may recall that being a question that may not have actually been that serious if this guy was actually going to run.
All right.
But with that cleared up, there was just no other even mildly recognizable name on the ballot. So whether that 90% will actually translate to, well, the other half of the voting public here in Texas is the real question, because there's a lot of further questions about stances. We did have, of course, those points being made from him, the O'Rourke campaign, about guns in support of the Second Amendment, but not happy with the open carry laws, the constitutional carry laws, I guess the most accurate way to put it, that were passed during the most recent set of sessions of the Texas legislature. So probably some policies walking back that if elected. So we're also looking at the potential actual reinvigoration of the economy being sought through a legalization of marijuana. An interesting pronouncement actually from O'Rourke on that point, saying that he is going to legalize marijuana if he is elected governor, and he expects that a lot of Republicans would come along with him on that. So I actually happened to take a brief trip out of town, day trip really, in the middle of the weekend. Just had to get out for a bit. I've been jonesing to do some things outside of the home and the office, as have been the largest features of my last couple of years, I'll freely admit. So went out of town, took a trip up to Truth or Consequences, like the hot springs up there. And there's been a lot of reinvigoration in that town over the past couple of years that we've seen that or haven't been going up there. And more than a couple of, shall we say, focused businesses, no dispensaries just yet. Not that it seemed like anyway. There was one place that had this name vaguely based around sage. So I'm not sure if that was going to be like an incense store or an incense store. But none of them really operating yet because we haven't hit that whole April deadline for New Mexico. But it did seem a lot more vibrant, more stuff going on. A lot of stuff was actually booked, a lot of no vacancy signs. We weren't looking at that ourselves because we weren't staying the night, but it just seemed like more was going on. So similar kind of sentiments we're seeing here in town, though with a little bit of a, let's just call it green twinge, maybe a little bit up there. Maybe that's my reading into it. But we are, of course, approaching that deadline. That's what's going to affect us here in the Borderland as those legalized recreational sales, state level, of course, is coming in for New Mexico. That does not change the law here in Texas, nor federal law overall. So anyone getting overly excited about that, mind your P's, Q's, and state lines, of course, with that kind of a thing. But I think there is some anticipation on the part of the O'Rourke camp that when this comes into place, maybe at least here regionally, and the other places that are along border, Midland and Odessa, North Texas, those kind of things, might be seeing an impetus towards it. Whether you believe it or not, now that's an entirely separate question, and what we'll get into here shortly. Due for that next break of the hour coming up here shortly. And what we'll go ahead and do, as we do during this point in the show most days, is open up those phone lines here. Let us know what you think about these issues and more, because a whole lot to talk about here. So due for that break right now, coming out of the break, opening up those phone lines, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A crash is slowing traffic, causing a backup on 10 Avenue eastbound at Yarborough. It's also closed the left lane and left turn lane. Gateway Boulevard northbound at Hercules, an injury accident there. Another accident reported Macomb Street south of Sanders at Joe Herrera. And medical crews still working an injury accident east of Saul Kleinfeld and south of Edgemere at Snowhawks Drive and Terrence Lane. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
What happens if we find the home we want, but somebody else just got to it quicker? What if we can't sell our existing home on time and we get stuck with 2 mortgages? I know. I've been there, and I have a solution. Listen carefully. You just need to call Brian Birds of eXp Realty. He'll guarantee your home will sell on time, or he's going to buy it himself. You'll get the home you want, and you don't have to worry about getting stuck with a burden of 2 mortgages. Hundreds of home sellers and renters trust Brian, and you can trust him as well. Connect personally with Brian today at 751-1500. That's 751-1500. Or go to brianbirds.com. That's Brian, BURDS.com.
Hey, El Paso, have you heard? To sell your home guarantee, call Brian Birds. Go to brianbirds.com.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Rob, age 22.
I got COVID in September of 2020, and a few weeks later, I started to have long-term problems. I used to run 5 to 6 miles a day. Now, when I walk up a flight of stairs, I'm gasping for air. It feels like my brain is clouded and I can't think straight.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Are you covered by Medicare and Medicaid? Well, El Paso Health Plus is the plan for you. As a local Medicare Advantage plan, we can offer our members more. Call us at 833-742-3125 or ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
Staples Print and Marketing Services help small businesses print big with wide format signs and banners. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 3/26. Visit staples.com/signage for details. Staples, the working and learning store.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all very much for tuning in here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point in the program, when we have opened up those phone lines. Number to call there, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot to talk about here. RJ, on the subject we were just discussing there, some of the shades of the election to come. Well, we're in it now, technically, but, I mean, the November here may seem a long way away, but it's going to be being fought out. Sounding pretty bitterly until then. RJ saying that old Beto never met an office he wouldn't run for, gun he wouldn't confiscate, or a weed he wouldn't legalize here. Again, not a terrible summation of some of the major points coming out of that whole campaign, even if softening a little bit on it. But we'll see how the campaign trail continues to evolve as we get closer to it here. Again, the issue at vogue most at the moment being on the teacher shortage, well, when it comes to policy anyway, and what is being investigated. The other one, of course, being involving some of those abortion issues and the child abuse issues. I mean, there's a lot other going on here. But when it comes to the policies being set and debated, the one that I'm focused most on is going to be the teacher issues, particularly then that juxtaposition of the very different policies in place for Texas and New Mexico. No real good short-term solutions outside of a National Guard deployment. Again, in a very different way happening on either side of the state line here, but we'll certainly take more comments and calls on that. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have Jerry in the Northwest on the line with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. I was wondering if you heard anything about one of the staffers of Beto O'Rourke accosting a reporter up in Dallas about 2 weeks ago.
Accosting, maybe not so much. I mean, harsh words can often be exchanged here, but what specifically were you talking about?
Well, a reporter was there at one of his events, and she had a cell phone with a lot of other people that had cell phones that were taking pictures of it. And one of the staffers, while this reporter was filming O'Rourke, one of the staffers come along and try to yank the phone out of her hand. And then a local police officer came over and basically manhandled the reporter. So I'm just wondering if you had heard anything about it, or if this is going to be one of them things kind of brushed underneath the rug as far as First Amendment rights with freedom of the press.
I hadn't heard that one specifically, I will freely admit here, but I wouldn't be surprised if incidents like that come up. I haven't even heard anything about it from the Abbott campaign, frankly, for that matter here. So whether or not it's focused on, I think is the reasonable question to ask.
Maybe if you would look it up and see if that's the occasion, because what I'm understanding is the reporter is now filing charges against the staffer, for basically stopping her from her free press and free speech portion, and then also filing against the police officer there in Dallas for interfering with the free press doing their duties, and also the manhandling of the reporter herself.
Closest I'm finding on shorthand here is no criminal charges filed after fight at an O'Rourke rally from a little bit earlier in February, but I'll have to dig a little bit deeper, see if anything comes up on that.
About 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah, that one doesn't seem to fit what you're talking about here, but
okay, well, I found that on the internet.
Okay.
You might want to look it up. Okay. Patriot Headline News.
Okay.
You might want to look that up. Because if they're not putting it out there, not only is Beto O'Rourke against the Second Amendment, looks like he's against the First Amendment also. So, just my opinion.
Fair enough.
I'm able to have one of those.
And we'll definitely keep having opinions around here. If opinions are going to go badly, other people are not going to have a good time on this show. I'll just put it that way here, because talking about the important things and what's important to people is what we do here. So, I mean, reasonable questions come out of this. If I was that reporter, I'd definitely be making a stink of it if that was the case and going on there.
She's trying to, but again, if you're on one side of the track and everybody else is on the other side of the track, and you're going a different direction than they are, they don't normally pay attention to you, especially if you're just one individual. So, it's one of them things. Everybody says that they like free speech and freedom of the press, but when it comes down to it, the Democrats have been pretty bad on press people. They've put them in little corrals and stuff like Hillary Clinton did one time, roped it off. And then like Joe Biden did, locked one of them in a closet. And then if you disagreed with some guy named Barack Obama, you were chased down the street and threatened to be beat up, So I'll just leave it where it's at. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, fair
Have
enough.
A good day.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for the point in the call there. What I will say, it's on your last point there, actually, during the Obama administration, you may recall, there was actually that attempt to essentially ban Fox News, call it not a news outlet. And it was actually a very proud moment for me, being vaguely involved with the news media, that there was a lot of the other outlets saying, no way. You do not get to pick and choose who you will recognize as accredited media or not. And so everyone else, the other organizations at the time, said, nope, we ain't playing by these rules if this is the way you're saying them. So it's either you accept all of us or you get none of us here. Whether or not that still kind of a policy would be in place from other organizations, well, I wouldn't necessarily hold my breath about. I'd be very encouraged if that were to happen, but not exactly something I can necessarily expect to hold my breath and leave safely about. Anyway, we'll have to get more into this and more subjects here, because I got to some other thoughts about that, about how I judge candidates' fitness, about how they deal, well, with me in the past, but then with other news media. We'll have to get into that here after this break, because we're already coming up on it. But again, if you're wanting to call in during the show, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Jay Visconti with some other comments and concerns going on relating to unaccompanied children. We'll have to get into that here as well. Some, of course, always developments going on there, more or less, even if a lot of attention has been taken away from it. But like I said, we've got a lot more to get into coming up on that need for the top of the hour break. And RJ with some further spicy comments here. We'll get into all of that and more after the break again. That number to call if you're interested in doing so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We got a lot more election talk to get through, a lot more of those kind of things coming up. And again, I'll just reiterating what's going on with the constitutional amendment election coming up even ahead of that actual runoff here. So got to take that break right now. Again, phone number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Social media, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. All that and more coming up this break. You're on News Radio 690, KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway Boulevard westbound at Trowbridge, an accident reported. Montana Avenue eastbound at Yarborough. An accident earlier in the hour has got the left lane and the left turn lane blocked on Montana Avenue, and it's causing a bit of a backup. McCombs Avenue, an accident reported there at Joe Herrera Drive in McCombs. And watch for an injury accident east of Saul Kleinfeld at Snowhawks Drive and Terrence Lane. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We've extended Ram truck months, and deals are even bigger and better with 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles, with more arriving daily.
Buy now and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months, 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days. Upside down on your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying your truck is fun. At I-10 at Southern Park Drive or online at southernparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate at dealer discount plus DTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Did you just look down at your phone? You did it again, didn't you? You know, you're flying down the road in a 3-ton hunk of steel, and a text takes your eyes off the road for an average of 5 seconds. At 55 miles per hour, that's long enough to travel the length of a football field and cause some serious damage. Turn it off. Trust me, whatever it is, you'll live.
Learn more at stoptextsstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Developed and used by cultures in forested areas, drums served as an early form of communication. Due to the highly ambiguous nature of these rhythms, misinterpretations often occur, resulting in violence. Thankfully, when we bang the drum now, we're a bit more civilized.
Can you hear me now?
A bit.
We have to hit them hard for this.
Beat out your frustrations on our drum.
Do not stop banging that drum.
News Radio 690, KTSM.
Standing up for what's right. Helping out when things go wrong. Seeking the truth and speaking our minds. Not just making records, but breaking them. Leading the way behind the camera beyond the runway, and on the silver screen. Not just making our mark, but making a difference. Now that's a job for a Girl Scout. Girl Scouts, preparing girls for a lifetime of leadership.
Because you never hear this.
Hey, hon, I'm late.
Chris, I am so pleased you missed the beginning of our meeting.
Thanks for making me wait, Dad. I talked to a lot of strangers.
Check on your commute. Stay informed. Traffic and weather all day. Or you might never hear the end of it.
Well, you were late to our anniversary dinner that one time.
News on the hour and the El Paso's News Radio 690. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The White House says the U.S. is keeping a close eye on talks between Ukraine and Russia. Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters there's been no evidence that Russian President Putin plans to de-escalate or stop the onslaught in Ukraine. She said Russia's behavior continues to be horrific and barbaric. President Biden is blaming the pandemic and Russia for rising inflation.
Rescuing our economy didn't cause this problem, but we're working to fix it.
Speaking to a National League of Cities conference in D.C., Biden said rising prices are due in large part to COVID-related disruptions in global supply chains. He insisted supply chains are struggling to catch up with robust consumer demand. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi hopes to start working on a COVID relief bill this week. More than $15 billion in additional COVID relief was stripped from a larger spending bill last week after objections from Republicans and some Democrats. Pelosi called herself very disappointed during an event in New York City. The Pentagon is extending sympathies to American journalists injured and killed in Ukraine. Lisa Taylor reports.
Two examples of the dangers in covering war. This is a war that didn't need to be fought, to be sure.
Freelance filmmaker Brent Renault was working on a documentary on refugees when he was killed. Fox correspondent Benjamin Hall was injured in Kyiv and is currently hospitalized. Pentagon press secretary gave his deepest condolences to Renault's family and wished Hall a speedy recovery.
Reports say Israel is dealing with a major cyber attack. A number of Israeli government websites went down on Monday. Unconfirmed sources say hackers based in Iran may be behind it. The market is closing with stocks mostly lower as investors keep a watchful eye on the Russia-Ukraine war. At the close, the Dow grew by a point to 32,945. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The mayors of New York City and Washington, D.C. are calling on the homeless to seek shelter following random shootings of the homeless. Scott Pringle reports.
Authorities say 5 homeless people sleeping on the streets of D.C. and New York were shot over the last few weeks. Authorities think one person is responsible. These New Yorkers are reacting.
Oh my God, that's unacceptable. Those people are so vulnerable and need to be protected.
I'm not surprised at all. It's quintessential New York City. Just like people getting pushed in front of the subway.
The mayors of the cities expressed confidence they'll get the killer locked up, but did release a statement urging the homeless to get off the streets for their protection.
A new study says invasive insects could kill close to 1.4 million urban trees over the next 30 years. Researchers from McGill University, USDA Forest Service Southern Research Station, and North Carolina State University said 90% of the trees will be killed by the emerald ash borer. Emerald ash borers are expected to kill nearly all ash trees in about 6,000 communities. Your vote is needed to determine what item produced in South Carolina is the best. We get more from Rebecca Hubbard.
From boats to SUVs to Girl Scout uniforms to diapers to F-16 jets, the coolest thing being made in the state could win a prize. South Carolina manufacturers are holding a March Madness-style competition across the state. Watch Fox 57 reports, so far the list shrank from 175 nominated things down to 16 items. Your vote this month can help pare down the choices to 8 and then to a winner. That announcement will be made at the State House on March 30th. Cast your vote at scmanufacturingmadness.com.
Warner Brothers Discovery is planning on making a combination of 2 of its streaming services. The company plans on combining HBO Max and Discovery Plus instead of offering the 2 separate platforms as a bundle. There will be options for ad-free and ad-light versions of the service. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish, forsaking all others?
I do.
I do. And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you roommates. Go forth.
That's not the vow you took. But if struggles with CPAP have you and your spouse sleeping in separate rooms, it might be time to look into Inspire. Inspire works inside the body with just the click of a remote. That's right, just a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation.
Talk to your doctor to see if Inspire is right for you. Review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690, KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
No word in the English language is less convincing than probably.
Are you sure we should get matching tattoos on our first date?
Sure. We'll probably stay together.
Probably? It's been 23 minutes since I ate. I can probably swim.
You should wait 30 minutes.
Okay, don't tell me what to do. Cannonball! Cramp! Oh, I have a cramp. I can probably hit the green from here. Probably. Can I get a mulligan?
Ready to go?
Hey, are you sure you're okay to drive?
Yeah, I'm pretty sober. Yeah, I'm probably okay. Probably okay isn't okay, especially when it comes to drinking and driving. If you're drinking, call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690, KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to get at us, a lot of comments coming in here. We got RJ, Michael Perez, Ion Grimm, John Brazelton, Jay Visconti, and more tuning in, chiming there. Also, those dropping their likes and reacts over on the page. Lorenzo Colon, Robert Hayes, Michael Robert Tipton. A lot of ways to get at us. Show your support there. If you give us a like, follow, share, those kind of things. I think we're actually just follows now. Facebook does weird things over on the main page anyway, because facebook.com/Talk El Paso still kind of considered the main one until further notice anyway. We don't ban anyone, but, well, Facebook does its own weird things more often than not. So a lot of comments here on Grimm, among other things, reminding us as part of the last discussion here about the hot mic moment, talking about the president referring to someone as SOB. I think I can get away with saying that. If not, well, we'll find out. Yeah, fun stuff. So, again, I said I'd mention it a little bit here. The way I tend to judge elected officials is how responsive and how responsible they are with, dealing with members of the public and also, furthermore, members of the, the news media. I know that that's a lot of opinions that come out on that. But if someone is not doing things to make themselves available, to answer questions, to be available, to, be transparent with their dealings, that just raises more questions in my mind, even if there may be some out there that have questions about those doing the questioning. But we're getting a little bit too deep here, at least for me, and the way I've experienced it, the way I've been involved with it when it comes to doing news coverage. Someone who is available to answer questions tends to be a little bit higher in my standing just thinking about them. When it comes to actually being available, answering questions, I've had Congress members, other elected officials literally run away from me in the past, and well, that's just good times, good anecdotal stories to tell while out with the night of drinking. Maybe we'll have some of those out there before too long. Then a whole lot more. Michael Pata is saying that the Poppy Festival has been canceled. To my understanding, that's not accurate, because including others from our news partners, that there's maybe not the total festival is going on, but that there's a month of events going on from our news partners over at the El Paso Herald Post. There are a number of events going on basically now through the early April. So check on that, make sure that that is still going on, because that's the last I heard anyway. But we do have those phone lines open now for those kind of comments. And if you want to give your feedback as well, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We have a call on the line here right now. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. I missed a little bit of your conversation about CBRE. How's this supposed to work with El Paso?
Oh, okay. So what's going on there is that the former director of Economic and International Development Department, let me say that right here, left to take a position with the CBRE, and now they have announced the new one here that is coming in that has been acting as the interim director. Let me find the name here, Elizabeth Triggs. So that's the confluence that's going on there. So I don't necessarily think there's any extra relationship between the city and CBRE than whatever already exists, but that has been the path of recent staffing has intersected with that.
One of the things that you might want to know is the CBRE, okay? This is on their website. It says, as a part of its 2040 net zero emission strategy, CBRE signed the Climate Pledge, a commitment to achieving net zero carbon 10 years ahead of the goal stated in the Paris Agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So watch that relationship very, very close. That is something that, they had a similar thing like that going in Tennessee, Mississippi, and one other state, and with another group, and they found out that what they were doing, and they're trying to shut that relationship down. You might want to take a real close look at the CBRE. Just something
Okay.
Sustainable, environmental focused approach, recognizing the responsibility and the opportunity to influence the way buildings are built, sourced, managed, occupied, and sold is one of their things. Greenhouse gases, got to get rid of them. Watch this one very closely.
Fair enough here. Yeah, just looking at their site here, it does. Yeah, it's all over it, talking about national and international, India, UK sustainability, survivability reports, those kind of things. So definitely seeming to be a focus of them. I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not that familiar with CBRE, out that head of the mention of that organization with that. So did a cursory search, but interesting the way you put there.
And it's a UK-based organization.
Mm-hmm. With definitely a lot of national involvement.
One other thing, wouldn't it be a good idea to have our oligarchs do something for the little people? All these people saying that we have to sacrifice our lives, or sacrifice a lot of what we're doing to take care of Ukraine and everything. And I haven't heard anybody from Congress, any of our state officials saying that they're, donating half of their salary to, the food banks,
mm-hmm.
of that sort.
Yeah, there's certainly. Even before this point, we were seeing, of course, record profits for certain very well already funded individuals here, that they've been doing some kind of small measures. But if there's, it would make sense for them in a variety of ways, both as just like being a decent human being, but then also given how there's been more than a couple of tweets and other social media postings we've been seeing going around comparing the oligarchy nature of the ones that were very focused on in Russia, and then just some similar stats for those in this country, that it might be even just a little bit of self-preservation for them to do a little bit more. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and kind of hypocritical for them to go around saying that we need to sacrifice, and they haven't done anything.
The yacht focus is what has really struck me. I mean, all this talk about where these yachts are, and there's been people that have dedicated whole Twitter accounts to just tracking where these supposed Russian oligarchs yachts are, including the one supposedly that belongs to Vladimir Putin through like 3 different layers of people that bought it for him, kind of thing. Supposedly docked in Kaliningrad, if I'm not mistaken. And yet it's kind of the whole juxtaposition of, well, their yachts are bad, but, well, of course, the U.S. rich guys, people, those yachts are perfect. Well, why would there be a problem with those yachts? That kind of a thing it did strike me over this past weekend looking at some of that stuff as a little, kind of moment.
And one other thing, over the weekend, I didn't hear anybody on any of the mainstream media, and I listened to a lot of it just because I'm sort of masochistic myself.
Fair enough.
I didn't hear anybody talking about the biolabs in Ukraine, and there happens to be a very, very interesting relationship between a group called Biometa and the DoD and our State Department and Hunter Biden, and how they were managing these biolabs.
The biolabs, the biolabs whole situation, I'm kind of holding my judgment until I see more out of it. Anything coming out of Ukraine, whether I agree with it or not, is suspect to me at the moment here. But some of the pronouncements coming out, that whole hearing that Marco Rubio was involved in, those kind of things are leading me to have certain implications of my thoughts on it. But in the meantime, I'm holding off on that till I can get my hands on something a little bit more concrete, because it's a bag of cats right now, and there's more than a little bit of propaganda involved with it. But it's certainly concerning. I will agree with you entirely on that point.
Yeah, look up Biometa also, and it's very interesting little relationship with that. All right. Anyway, that's what I had to say today.
No. Sure thing. I appreciate the point in the call there. You have a good one there. All right, that actually is going to take us through our next break here already. We do have that phone line open, so if you're wanting to call in, the number to do so here, if I didn't fat finger it and knock you off, my apologies. We are taking those calls, so the number to call is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Earlier accident, Montana Avenue eastbound at Yarborough, is all lanes back open there. That left lane was closed. Still a bit of a backup. Accident reported Zaragoza at John Hayes. Another accident reported Gateway Boulevard westbound at Trowbridge. And an accident reported Macomb Street at Joe Herrera. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Rob, age 22.
I got COVID in September of 2020, and a few weeks later, I started to have long-term problems. I used to run 5 to 6 miles a day. Now, when I walk up a flight of stairs, I'm gasping for air. It feels like my brain is clouded and I can't think straight.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Research shows people remember radio ads that remind them of the past. So to help you remember that Liberty Mutual Insurance Company customizes your home insurance so you only pay for what you need, here's an ad that'll really take you back.
Back in my day, I heard a voice from the radio say, Liberty Mutual customizes my home insurance so I only pay for what I need. I'm getting on in years now, but heavens to Betsy, there are some things an old fella like me just never forgets.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty. Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show. So we are taking those phone calls right now. The number to call there, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A couple of updates, some stuff coming in here. Someone actually just shared with me the article mentioned by someone earlier. Did a better search for me than I found on from the Daily Wire. O'Rourke staffer gets physical with Blaze Media. And I made sure that went over there just because has been found there. It's from a little bit earlier last week, actually, this one coming out here. So we'll talk further about that, potentially. Not that I have to deep dive into the article here, but more to be discussed with all these election currents here. And we'll continue on until we hit first we got those primary runoffs, and then, of course, the general election coming up here. Also, one update thing, Ben clarified he was talking about a company called Mecca. Let me see if I got it right here. Mecca Biota is what he said to me here, so we'll have to look more further into that here as well. RJ saying, Blaze, how shocking here. Michael Patter's clarifying that, he's going off what was in the El Paso Times today. I was going off what our news partners over the El Paso Herald Post are. So, I mean, I guess canceled technically in that it's not happening this year, but it wasn't like on and then off here. Again, I'm cutting someone off on the phone there because I'm missing the buttons I'm punching here. Just try calling back again because we'll get you on. Happy to do so here. The number to call there, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. But from our news partners of the El Paso Herald Post, that there are events to celebrate the poppies going on. But I guess, you are correct that there's no central event, no main festival, due to both being cited as from El Paso Times, quoting El Paso City Council, a spokesman for the city, Ricardo Isaiah, saying no festival in 2022 due to the pandemic and the lack of blooming flowers. Quoted there here. So, correct in that way. But there are still some events going on. If you want to go over to our news partners at the El Paso Herald Post, they got a list of some things that'll be going on. Some already started, I believe, but going on through the end of early April, actually, I think is what it technically is here. But let's get to more calls on the line here. Again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. The little understanding that I have of these biolabs based on the media that I follow, which, by the way, have all kinds of experts, unlike other media.
Sure.
They have former prosecutors, former FBI people, former heads of the CIA. I mean, they've got the experts where I watch it, not these nuts here and there, no credentials. In any case, these biolabs, countries throughout the world set up biolabs to detect viruses and work on virus research should one pop up. And this is what my understanding of those biolabs are. And it's not that we were creating chemical warfare to attack the United States or Russia or some other crazy Putin theory. Talking about money, I was seeing how the state of Kentucky lost, they had $62 million invested in Russian companies, and this was for their pension retirement funds, including the teachers' retirement fund. And when they sold their position in those Russian assets, they lost $3 million. Now, this is the state that belongs to Moscow Mitch. He was, as you know, the Senate Majority Leader for a long time, Mr. Obstructionist. He brags about being an obstructionist. His wife was Secretary of Transportation under Trump, and she comes from Chinese royalty, big money from China. So there you go. It's all about money. And to your previous caller about talking about the oligarchs, he wishes that they would give us a break. I just recently today spent a day switching over from one phone an internet service to another because my bill had gone from about $95 to $165. It's almost a 75% increase. So of course that starts people shopping, when those things happen. And I asked a technician who installed my new system, how many players there are in El Paso for this? 2. And that's nothing unusual. In big, giant industries, it's an oligopoly. The oil industry, for example, the telecommunications industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the banking industry, the insurance industry. A few big players whose names show up on the S&P 500 who have inordinate political power because of all the money they contribute to these politicians, so that we have the most expensive healthcare system in the world, and it's highly inadequate compared to the other countries that got with the program of a single payer, which is not rocket science. I've been involved in the insurance industry for most of my working career, and it's not rocket science. It's all numbers. It's all statistics. It's mortality tables, morbidity tables, and it's a racket for these industries that got into this and have us buy the short ones.
I mean, I'm not totally on board with the idea of a single payer system. Like, okay, in an idealized circumstance, if it were to be managed that way and be perfectly run, sure, it sounds pretty good. But I mean, we look at things like very locally issues with government provided healthcare with things like the VA system, and you want to start written that kind of a thing put in place writ large on what we have available to us. I mean, basically, you want to look at another country that actually has that kind of a system in place. You look at what they have, like in the UK, where, yes, everyone is guaranteed a certain level of healthcare just by existing as a citizen of that country. And yet there are then the people who can afford it that tend to then buy their own coverage to get out of that system here. I know there's a lot of talk that happens about Canada here, but I don't find that the most useful example, frankly, because it wouldn't be going all the way anyway those ways, because I mean there's a transition that would have to happen if it were to be put into place. That was kind of what the idea behind the Affordable Care Act was. Obamacare was more commonly known, but didn't exactly end up that way, because if it was intended as a stopgap, they kind of did it right at the start of the administration and then kind of didn't touch it for the rest of that whole term of office. And I mean the unpopularity and the issues that came with it, keep your doctor, and I mean there's a lot of issues that came along with it, which is why, yes, if government were run by angels, we wouldn't need a whole lot of systems in place, but men are no angels, and a whole lot of problems can crop up with it here. And I'm not surprised that there's been more than a few people that took it in the shorts with the otherwise, basically structured collapse of the Russian economy we've been seeing from the sanctions here. I wouldn't have recommended it myself here. The movie that came out a while ago, that the kind of the restart of the whole I'll have to look it up here in a second, but it was based around financial investigations into Russia and issues and espionage going on with it, and the whole it was a dramatized movie, absolutely here, but the whole Wild West of Russia being it was a major plot point within this movie. I'll need to look up the title here, it's blanking on at the moment, but the Wild West and insider trading being legal in Russia was an absolutely true part of it here. And the way, I mean, sure, we talk a lot about economic inequality here in the United States as part of the public discourse, but you really want to talk about economic inequality, and specifically offshoring, Russia is kind of a champion of that. I mean, the estimates about how much is actually held in the hands of those, 300 or some odd close confidants and oligarchs of Russia, and how much of that value is then actually kept outside of the country so that they have them in safe havens, have extracted the value and taken it out, and are things like, those yachts, is significant, and to a whole nother order of magnitude than any discussion really happens here in the United States. So I'm not exactly a fan of those guys, do not get me wrong, but at the same time, do think that there's some reasonable looking at how things are working in this country. And when it comes to monopoly or monopolistic competition, as you brought up there, yeah, I mean, we're frankly lucky here in El Paso to have a couple of choices there. I've got friends and relatives and people who live in a place where it's one or nothing, which is why I do think that there are policies that need to be in place to, I mean, if someone has managed to enshrine a monopoly in law, that's wrong. That's flat out wrong and needs to be remedied. Someone needs to run on that in that community and deal with it. But I'm also encouraged, as much as I am dubious about some things coming out of Elon Musk and Tesla in general, the whole Starlink system has some strong possibilities. I actually know someone who is in rural New Mexico and had real difficulty. They were looking at actually like building a tower on their property to have a better line of sight to the essential microwave system that was in place within their county to be able to get better access to internet. It was going to be a whole thing, but they ended up getting Starlink instead, and it's actually worked out pretty well for them. No, I'm not sponsored by Tesla. I've got plenty of gripes with Musk and Tesla in general, but that's the kind of thing, innovation, that needs to be done to get over these kind of problems here. And when then certain things start getting enshrined in law that prevent competition from happening, that's when you're going to hear the most from me here. Exactly. Michael Pat has some of the comments over here also about bad single-payer systems, talking about the VA. Yeah, from friends I've had that did their service, God bless them for it, but have had just a hell of a time dealing with it afterwards. Oh, boy. I find myself, again, even if an idealized system sounds so great, getting there, and any reasonable example we have of it within this country is just, I'm not going to just go straight to terrifying, but I've definitely had bad dreams that featured that kind of a concept in place here that I woke up in a cold sweat from. Anyway, we're due for that next break right now, so thank you for the point in the call. We'll get into more calls and more issues here. If you're wanting to call in, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Justin Creed, your CBS 4 News Update. We continue to follow breaking news out of the Lower Valley. El Paso police are still investigating a serious shooting at the San Montego Apartments on Colonel Circle. El Paso police tell CBS 4 the shooting happened around 2:30 this morning. Officers say the man suffered what they are calling life-threatening injuries. A crime against persons unit was on the scene helping with the investigation. We'll have much more on this breaking news in our later newscasts and on our website, cbs4local.com. A manhunt is underway right now after Doña Ana County Sheriff deputies discovered the body of a man late Saturday night. It happened on a small residential street in an area south of Anthony, New Mexico. That's where Sheriff Kim Stewart says Jose Hernandez was found dead from a gunshot wound. Deputies have identified Alejandro Salas as the main suspect. Investigators believe it was a domestic dispute. A warrant has been issued for Salas' arrest. With your CBS 4 News Update, I'm Justin Cree.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Watch for crash-slowing traffic Gateway Boulevard westbound at Trowbridge Drive. All lanes are back open on Montana Avenue eastbound at Yarborough from that earlier crash. Oregon Street, north of West Schuster at Kirby Avenue, an accident reported there. And an injury accident saw Kleinfeld at Zaragoza. You could take Montwood or Bob Mitchell Drive as alternates. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the Forewarn Weather Center, this is CBS 4 weather forecaster Brady Brewster. After a pretty pleasant weekend, we'll continue to see those nice temperatures for the next few days, right where we should be for this time of the year with our daytime highs in the low 70s. Breezy to windy conditions do pick back up this afternoon. We can see gusts as high as about 25 to 30 miles per hour. Temperatures keep climbing throughout the week. By midweek, we're looking at daytime highs near that 80-degree mark.
This report is sponsored by Churches.
Stop by Churches for the high-flying flavor combination of our Texas tenders and shrimp meal today. It's butterfly shrimp alongside made-from-scratch Texas tenders, served spicy or original for $6. Churches, welcome to the great state of flavor. Offer valid at participating locations.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Hey guys, it's Edgy Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
I bought football tickets for my husband's birthday, and now I'm in a football bubble. All I see online are articles and ads about football. I hate feeling manipulated. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show here, as we do have those phone lines open at this point in the program. 915-544-5876-544-KTSM is the number to call if you wanted to chime in yourself there, particularly if you're out there on the road there and can do so safely. Don't be doing the cell phone to the ear kind of thing, people. Don't be that person. Please don't. I hate those people. Hate's a strong word. I very much dislike being anywhere near on the road with those people, so don't do it either. But if you're safely able to do so, more than welcome to give us a call, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Amongst many of the things I'm looking up here, remember that movie that I was badly recounting the plot of? Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit, the 2014 pseudo-revival of the whole Jack Ryan series, but there's not the whole Amazon series. It was Amazon that puts that out there. Anyway, this is the Chris Pine one, and this one features a whole subplot, or at least the main plot, involving a Russian oligarch and the way financials work in Russia, that at first I was like, oh, well, that's crazy if a system would work that way, and then you look a little bit closer at it in reality and think, oh my God, that's kind of how things work. Again, dramatized, it's a whole murder terror plot going on there, but some of the aspects of financials more than a little bit close to reality here. So again, not surprised that the Kentucky teacher pension system losing $3 million to that whole system. I believe there's more in Texas as well as others, because sure, there's a lot of lucrative things that have happened over there, but it's such a bag of cats that I can't imagine getting too involved in it here. A lot more comments coming in as well. Marky Mandingo on Spectrum and AT&T Uverse, some of the major services that are available in our area, saying that you can make it work better for yourself if you can here. But other questions and comments coming in: John Browselton, Jay Visconti, Michael Perez, RJ, and more. So a lot of comments coming up here if you want to chime in over there. But we also got those phone calls. Again, the number there, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Do have Harry, a horse, on with us right now on the east side. Harry, thanks for joining us.
Yes, Andrew. Good comments from the folks today. Very good comments. Raul's on his game. I just have some general comments I would like to make.
Sure thing.
We got to start showing a little love for Beto. Beto is Mr. El Paso. Regardless, I had previously said, you got to admire the guy for getting out and doing what he's doing. And I just said, if there's somebody better out there, then let's get them out there and hear what they got to say. You're on to something here, Andrew. You don't have enough on your plate. Congratulations on taking over the Saturday morning history show. Yes. That's I'm sure it's going to be interesting, as it always has been. And I'd just like to make a comment. Melissa Sargent, I put her in the same category as Dr. Nashalicio. We're going to miss her. She has contributed greatly to the show for the folks that do listen to it on Saturday morning if they want to learn something. Now, this Saturday, Andrew, you folks talked about the water situation, everything that has to do with water in El Paso.
Oh, yes.
And I found it quite interesting, and the things that you learn. And I'm here to tell you that, in my opinion, fire and water are the two most powerful forces in the world. They are.
Okay.
And I don't think there's anything more powerful. Let me give you an example. New Mexico, the Rio Grande flows at its peak through Hatch, New Mexico. Having been there and allowing the farmers up there to grow the greatest peppers in the history of the world. They ship their peppers all over the world, and I know because I've been to places in the world where you couldn't get peppers. Okay, so another comment I'd like to make. I lived in Colorado for a number of years, and the Grand Junction, the western portion of Colorado, over the western portion of the peak, the Colorado flows at its greatest peak, and I'm telling you, I stood there. It flows so hard that it actually scares you. Okay, it actually scares you to see the river running like that. And when you get down into Laughlin, Nevada, if you're sitting outside the riverside casino, the Colorado settles down to where there's people out there canoeing and water skiing and just doing things. It just looks like a different creation of water. One last thing. Pueblo, New Mexico, Cannon, west of Pueblo, is a very popular vacation destination area where people like to go. And they have the longest expansion bridge in North America in one of the parks down there. And I've walked across it, and you can look down and see the Arkansas. There's never a pretty waterside, Andrew, in the world that you would ever want to see. So those were my comments. A couple pieces of history there.
No, interesting point there. I mean, yeah, we had on, of course, on the El Paso History Radio Show this weekend, the IBWC, the International Boundary and Water Commission. So somewhat involved in the resource management of it, but very much involved in the boundary marking of it as well. Technically an international commission there, as the name suggests. And its history in El Paso is a fascinating one. One story we've gotten to previously on that program, but not this time, is how one of the initial commissioners to come out to this area had brought across, well, these giant iron boats dragged across the desert because you're the water commission. You got to come out here and deal with that. And then they got here and found the Rio Grande as, well, okay, it had water in it back in the day, but it's very much not like the Colorado or like other sources like that, in that it's this deep, strong running channel. It was wide, the whole Bosque. If you've ever been out to the Rio Bosque area, that is more indicative of what the Rio Grande, even within this area, used to be. And yeah, they ended up, I think, abandoning those boats here or scrapping them. And there were actually some other issues that were brought up with the people who brought the boats for him. I mean, it's a whole fascinating bit of history, but we're very happy to have on Mark Howe with the IBWC and some of their historical and cultural programming along with that here. And we'll be continuing that on here. So I'm very happy to take over that program and deal with it, because I love talking about El Paso history. We get into the more modern aspects here on this program, and we'll be keeping them more or less separate, don't you worry, because talking about things in different ways, historical perspective is very important, but we also got a lot to get to there. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. I think we can squeeze in one more here before we hit in this next break here. Again, if you wanted to add your 2 cents before the end of the show, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We have a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Andrew.
Hey there, Andrew. What's on your mind?
Yes, reference Beto O'Rourke's campaign. I'm just wondering if he's losing steam when he has to resort to insults such as referring to Abbott as a thug and an authoritarian.
I don't know if exactly losing steam. I think he might be losing his composure a little bit, but he's done this previous. He had some very choice words, I want to say, during the Trump administration that were, not repeatable on radio, if I remember them correctly.
I remember that. But like I said, I just feel that there's no substance to what he's talking about. I mean, this business with the electricity grid, you know, that's come and gone. Okay, we've gone through that, and this business of the constitutional carry. More states now are going to constitutional carry. Now, mind you, doesn't bother me either way. I'm not for it or against it, but now 44% of the states now have some sort of constitutional carry.
Yeah, it has been an increasing wave across the country. I mean, there had been previous measures of the may issue, shall issue type of laws that were in place when it came to concealed carry, but that has been one of the bigger successes of the kind of pro-gun lobby across the country, is focusing on that, even if the places where you might want to see it most, like, I don't know, California and New York, not exactly successful there, but at least here within Texas, it was a little weird just from even a flat political analysis that places like New Mexico had a version of constitutional carry and Texas didn't.
Correct. Also, I was reading that, Beto has been an advocate, or he's a proponent of, getting rid of the cash bail system.
That one doesn't come up as much, but yeah, it's been occurred actually here within El Paso for a while, kind of, and more on the county commissioner's side of it than even his kind of background when it came to city council here. But it kind of gets a little bit lumped in with some of his talk about marijuana legalization. But that has been, honestly, I haven't even heard him make any real statements about it outside of some vague kind of policy put forth.
Well, what a lot of people don't realize about you go that route, okay, you have to have some sort of accountability. People need to, they need to, their feet need to be held to the fire, because depending on the type of offense, okay, there are states that will not, well, Texas is one of them too. There are certain offenses that they will not extradite you back from other states. So, basically, these offenders can give people the state of Texas the bird. That's why a cash bail and a PR bond is the most effective.
I know that has been more of a move in this community to the PR bonds kind of thing, and the whole pretrial diversion program that county commissioners had been focused on for a while. Former Commissioner Vince Perez was one of the major proponents of that, but it's kept on in its own way even since his tenure in that office ended. But when it comes to O'Rourke here, the major things he talks about within his own issues here, when it comes to issues about public safety, is an interesting point that that Governor Greg Abbott is actually making things less safe here, and that that O'Rourke, if elected, will bring down violent crime in our communities, with not finding any mention in his policy statements here anyway about bond systems, but a lot of focus on community resources, and also, well, gun laws are brought up here. Yeah.
Well, I seriously have my doubts that he can bring any type of reduction in crime. And number two, there's a distinct difference between pretrial diversion and PR bond. Okay,
that's true.
Pretrial diversion is run by the district attorney's office, and it's actually it's supervised by the probation department, whereas PR bond is strictly a bond supervision system administered by and supervised by the county. It's quite detailed.
Oh yeah, no, we that you can go well down the rabbit hole with all these policies and what we've seen even here put into place locally, but that's a whole nother show practically.
Right. Yeah. It was a big headache for me when I was in the system, but you have to learn it. But anyway, thank you and have a good evening.
No, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call there. Do appreciate it here. Again, if you want to slip in before the end of the show here, we'll take maybe squeeze another one here. Number to call 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. But in the meantime, we got to take that last break at rounding the bend towards the end of the program here. We'll get into a little bit more, talk about what we got coming up on the program here for you. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. We'll get into it, set it up for what comes next, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway Boulevard, southbound at Pershing. A disabled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder there. Stay left. Got slow traffic on the 10 eastbound between Geronimo and Hawkins with a 5-minute delay. Accident reported Dyer, northbound at Threadgill Avenue. You could use Rushing Drive or Wren Avenue as alternates. Another crash reported at the Gateway Boulevard northbound at East Yandell Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Caitlin, age 20.
I got COVID in November 2020. In January, I started having long-term problems. I was a varsity soccer player in high school, and now I get winded just from walking. I can't remember things. It's just unbearable.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
This is important news. If you have unfiled tax returns, the IRS is shifting gears and ramping up investigations on non-filers this year. If you fail to file your tax returns for a year or more, or you owe back taxes, now's the time to call Optima Tax Relief before the IRS finds you. Optima is America's #1 most trusted tax resolution firm, specialized in helping individuals, families, and businesses get right with the IRS. They're experts in the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, a powerful new program that can make resolving tax issues easier. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, Optima's award-winning team has helped thousands of people protect their paychecks, bank accounts, homes, and businesses by putting their tax problems to rest, resolving over $1 billion in tax debts for their clients. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-337-4548. That's 800-337-4548. 800-337-4548.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour, and always online at KTSMradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show, even as we're rounding the bend here towards the end of the program. Here, I want to tell you a little bit about what we got coming up here, of course. I'm going to be talking more about the situations affecting us here in the Borderland. Specifically, tomorrow, going to be talking about some of those oil and gas issues. Of course, we have a lot present in our region, both in the economic impact coming from them and the sheer amount of drilling, pumping, etc. that comes with it. So let's get to some of the realities about how does this industry actually work and why are we seeing some of the things that we are? Because it's been pointed out that this isn't the first time we've seen this above $4 a gallon gas within, well, even just the last generation. So how do we get here? What does it mean? What are the policies that might need to be done in a place to get past this? Because, yeah, even if there is a political debate to be had, the pain definitely can be very real for a lot of people here. So we'll talk more about that here for sure. But in the meantime, this is the point in the show when we do bring up those pound 250 calls, because if you got a burning comment or question for us that you really want to be able to speak to, but we're off air or in between shows or coming in, the best way you can do that is by using the pound 250 system. You hear about it in some other commercials. Essentially, you dial pound 250 on your device, or hashtag 250 as it gets called now these days. Call it like a phone number. It'll ring, has to be on a cell phone, and then you'll be asked to say a keyword, say Talk El Paso, and you can leave us your own message, much like this.
This is Messiah Frankie again. I want to continue on with the aspect of moronics. Where you got this guy, awful Andrew, who complained to me that I should not say the terrible thought process relative to describing a person as a moron. Well, I ask you, Andrew, awful Andrew, You explain to me that the differentiation between a normal thinking person and a moron like you. You go on there and you love this Donnie Dotard doofus and the rest of the nonsense crapola that he espouses and his stupid-looking hairstyle. Why don't you explain to everybody out in the southwest border region why you think you're not supposed to be called a moron?
Again, if you want to leave your own comments along, well, the other lines, if you want to, pound 250, keyword Talk El Paso, and you can do it that way. Okay, let me just say that a lot of people who claim, oh, I'm just doing flat political analysis, the arrow never points the other way to the, well, other side of things. It tends to be very sharp in one direction, but then never really, oh, yeah, and the guys that I otherwise like and vote for are idiots too, and let me explain to you why. It doesn't usually work out that way. We get plenty of calls of people saying that, why can't we, be nice, not call names here? And I think if ever there was a point in not even just this program, but of discourse in general in this country, that ship long since sailed. So as long as we're abiding by FCC regulations, because that's what determines our ability to keep doing this show, that's my major concern here. So if using that level of spicy language, you're going to be quickly escorted off the program. But, I mean, okay, if people don't like it, you're welcome to let us tell us what you think about these issues here. So if you're disagreeing with the language use, sure, that's not unreasonable, even if I'm not sure that trying to enforce that we never take a call, I feel like sometimes on this program here. But sure, if you're wanting to say that there are people who do voting things and elect people for stupid reasons, I mean, that goes without saying, frankly. But if you're really saying that, and also only the people that I disagree with are the idiots and everyone that I agree with are clearly savants in so many ways and should never be questioned, that's, let's just follow that through to its natural conclusion here. That's where things fall apart for me. So sure, if you want to label someone a moron, it's not the term of preference that I would use for anything. I mean, I choose my words decently carefully, but it's not necessarily that someone may not be deserving to call that, but rather the way that only certain people end up being that, and it doesn't seem to be based solely on intelligence. By that, what I mean is that there are plenty of intelligent reasons to support just about any political candidate, whether or not you're actually looking at the total impact on yourself and voting in or maybe even against your self-interest. That's where I start thinking about the intelligence being done there. And frankly, I am almost not even caring about intelligence level in voting at this point, because if I'm going to hold even a higher standard of voting than we currently have, it'll be me, the listeners to this show, and the people involved with each party are going to be the only ones left voting. So I don't think that's the way we need to go either. We need more people voting. So sure, if you want to scream from the rooftops that everyone's an idiot that disagrees with you, go right ahead. But I think also people will take it from your analysis and the way you talk about it, how reasonable your points are. So frankly, I think it says more about you than it does anyone you're labeling anything else here. We will have to leave it there for today because we're out of time here for this program. But like I said, we got a lot more coming up for you, including more talk about some of these economic energy concerns and so forth. Maybe a little bit more about the whole nearshoring effort that is definitely having impacts on our area, including what we talked about today. But I want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. You all really would help make the show what it is and move to a hopefully maybe one day higher level of discourse. I'm not holding my breath on that either. So thank you to everyone again. We'll see you again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Want to leave us a message, pound 250, Talk El Paso to say afterwards. Otherwise, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening. I'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got a disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder on Loop 375 Trans Mountain, just east of the 10 at Northwestern. Gateway Boulevard, southbound at Pershing, another stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Stay left. Medical crew responding to an accident rushing at Fairbanks Drive, and an accident reported dire at Threadgill Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus Medicare Advantage Plan offers great supplemental benefits designed specifically for El Pasoans, such as $3,500 a year in dental benefits, $300 in vision, and a quarterly OTC card with $250 to spend on health and wellness products. Plus, generous benefits for hearing, podiatry, home-delivered meals, and so much more. Plus, our new Get Fit benefit to keep you active and social, as well as our new Healthy Eats program. At El Paso Health Plus, we go the extra mile for our members because this is our home and our local knowledgeable staff is here to help you get more benefits, more services, more from your health plan. If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, call us 833-742-3125 or visit ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus, your local Medicare Advantage plan.
Portions of the following program were